So good evening, a very warm welcome to everyone, especially our speaker Mike. Tonight we are continuing our topic of emotional intelligence that we started yesterday. So Mike, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Dusha. Thank you again to everybody for zooming in, for tuning in. And should I be coming up on the screen, or is it still you, Dusha? Do you know how that's working?
It is.
Okay. Spotlighted. So very warm welcome to part 2 of our sessions on emotional intelligence. And I think there's a lot of people who believe emotional intelligence means that you become more intelligent the more emotional you are. And so it's a little bit of an oxymoron from that point of view, or an opposite of meanings, is you become less intelligent, as we saw last night, when you become emotional. And when you create the emotion, it gets in the way. You feel it for sure, but it gets in the way of your ability to choose what you're feeling. You will only feel the emotion for as long as it lasts. And then your feelings, in a sense, they become infested by that emotion. And only when that emotion cools down can you choose exactly what you feel in the situation that you're in. So it's useful to see this in connecting with other people, is that when they say something that triggers you to an emotional response, you can't feel or choose your feeling in that situation, because the emotion floods your mind, and that's all you can feel. Until that calms down, then you can choose whether to be caring, whether to listen, whether to share some advice. It really depends. And so the secret is to be free of the emotion, so that you can feel what you want to feel, and therefore respond in a cool way. So tonight we're going to look at just generally the feelings, and how those feelings become hijacked by the emotion, and the feelings themselves become emotion. It's the same energy, it's just something gets in the way. So tonight we'll look at what feelings are exactly, how to feel, where we feel, when we will feel, and how to keep those feelings free of emotional distortion, which is what happens really to the energy that we're using at the moment, in the moment. So let's see if I'm set up to share my screen. Not quite. Let's get rid of that and stop share. Start share again, and let's get rid of that. And you should see on your screen Cultivating Emotional Intelligence Part 2. So, as you probably remember last night, emotion is a disturbance in the energy of your consciousness. That's what your consciousness is. It's just energy when the object of attachment, and very often it's your car, is damaged, threatened, moved, or lost. And we saw that the 3 main families of emotion that we experience when something that we're attached to is damaged, threatened, moved, or lost is sadness, anger, and fear. Yeah, and so it can happen just in a simple conversation, which becomes an argument. And that's because you're very attached to your belief, and you see the other's belief as a threat to you, and they see your belief as a threat to their belief. And so there is a moment of sadness, but mostly it's anger. Your energy transforms into the vibration of anger. And suddenly that takes over my consciousness, and I can't think straight, and I can't speak sensibly. I'm sure we've all had that experience at some time or other. So the three families of emotion we looked at: fear, anger, and sadness, and the different faces of those emotions. And they appear in different ways at different times, but they are all basically based in these three families. And no one teaches us what these emotions are. No one teaches us how to identify our emotions. And that's usually something that's missing from our educational curriculum, but it's very well worth doing in your life today, is really identifying the emotion that you feel so that you can be more aware of when they are arising. And of course, guilt and shame, I've done something bad, or I'm a bad person, is the difference. But they're a mixture of all the three emotions of fear and anger and sadness. And if you go into guilt, if you go into shame, just take a moment to sit quietly and go into them with your awareness. You'll find there's something you're scared of, something that is angering you, and something that you are sad about. So you've lost something. So take your time, raise your awareness, go into those emotions and find out what they are. So confusion, generally, when we are confused, we tend to become exhausted. Anger is confused with passion. You know, they say, "Oh, we're really passionate about this issue, this cause," and so therefore they're really angry and protesting about it. But anger is not passion, or passion is not anger. It's confused with anger. Anger just simply means, I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting what I want. And so enthusiasm tends to be the correct feeling. When you feel enthusiasm for something, then there's no anger, there's no resistance. Then you can express yourself freely and you feel that enthusiasm. And that has a component of peace within it. And so anger, its opposite, is peace. Fear is confused with happiness. When you go to a football match and you watch the other team and you watch your team, you're a little bit confused because you think you will be happy when your team scores. You'll be unhappy when the other team scores. So you're scared of the other team scoring. You're scared of your team not scoring. And so we call that happiness. It's sometimes called excitement, and excitement is not happiness. Excitement is what happens when the kettle boils. The molecules in the water are agitated, and that is not happiness. Agitation in our consciousness is what gets in the way of being peaceful, content, and happy ourselves. So we don't really feel it, but we confuse fear with happiness. And sadness is confused with loss. Yeah. So when we lose something, it means literally that we're free of what we were attached to. It's not possible to lose anything because it's not possible to possess anything. So when you experience some loss, it's an excuse, a moment to celebrate, not become, oh God, that's terrible, it's gone, it's finished. It sounds weird, but if you think about it, when you lose something, then you no longer possess it, then you can celebrate your liberation from it. So when you experience these emotions over and over regularly in our life, which we do, they exhaust us. They're both exhausting and addictive. we think that these are the right emotions to have, and that's right to live by these emotions, but they're really quite tiring. And so that's why after an argument, you have to rest. You have to take it easy, or I need a lie down, as they say. So does this mean that all emotions are negative? This is a very frequent question that comes up, because what I've done is I've highlighted how the feeling is transformed into an emotion, and the emotion is not such a good thing. So many people ask the question, are emotions generally, are they negative? And so we call love an emotion, but is love really an emotion? Yeah, and so I've done quite a bit of research into what love is, where it comes from, how we express it, etc. And I find that we use the word love, we use the word love in the wrong way. We use it when, it's similar with happiness, we use it when we want something. And we say, I love that, which really means I want that. He says to her, I love you. But he really is saying, I want you. And she says to him, I love you too. And she then believes that she wants, or maybe even has got you. And so we confuse the word love when we really mean desire. We want something. Or it's attachment, as we have seen. When we say we love something, it's not love. Love is unconditional, it's giving, it's sharing, but we use it in the context of our attachments, and we're holding on to it. So love doesn't hold on to anything, doesn't get attached to anything. Or it's a dependency. When we use the word love, we really mean we are dependent on that thing or that person or that situation. Or it's an identification. And we should say it's a misidentification. I love the chocolate. I love the coffee. I love the cake. And so I'm dependent, and I'm also identifying with it because I'm a little bit attached to it. So it's not wrong, it's not bad. It's just about becoming aware of how we're misusing the word love in certain situations. And then we think it's okay. And so it's similar with happiness. Happiness is usually expressed simply when we acquire something. I'm so happy. The new carpet's just arrived. Darling, don't you know the carpet's just arrived? I'm so happy. And so it's not real happiness, it's an acquisition of some object in our life. And that's how we define our success. The more you acquire, the more successful you are, the prouder you can be. Or it's some kind of consumption. I've just had my favorite ice cream, my favorite chocolate. But that, I'm so happy. But it's not happiness, it's consuming something. It tastes nice, but it can't be called true happiness. It doesn't come from outside. And eating chocolate or the cake is not coming from inside, it's coming from outside. Or it could be an experience. I could be off to the circus, off to the football match, and then I come home and I'm so happy because we won, or the circus was great. And so it tends to be an experience we have of something external to us. And we call that happiness. And so we're very dependent on external situations, external events, what people say to us to make us happy. And so we're searching outside for our happiness. And that's the wrong place to look. That's the wrong place to see it. And of course, the most popular word that's used in the place of happiness, that we shouldn't really call it happiness, is when the pain of the toothache, let's say you have toothache and the pain is gone, and I'm so happy. Yeah, that's not real happiness. It's called relief from pain. Yeah, And so there are many pains that we are relieved from that we are calling our happiness. So how do I know none of these words that we should use, but we don't use because we're not sure about what they really mean? How do I know none of them are love or happiness? And it's because they're all forms of dependency. Yeah, I'm dependent on something external to myself, somebody external to myself saying something or doing something which pleases me. And so they're pleasing me, and we're calling that our happiness. So they're all dependencies. So they're not real. So what is love and what is happiness? What is it really? So love is, and this is just my way of defining it, you might define it differently, the natural expression of myself or the giving of myself in the form of sharing, helping, encouraging, empowering, appreciating. It's giving without wanting anything in return. And so the giving has an intention behind it, and the intention is to bring benefit to the other. Yeah, so that is what real love is that when you give of yourself or give something to another person without wanting anything in return. And we do this at least once a year, Christmas time, we give gifts. And we normally don't want anything in return for at least 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And then we might say, well, where's mine? And in that moment, the giving unconditionally without wanting anything in return is kind of destroyed. And so love is the giving without wanting anything back. Yeah. Whether it's affection or whether it's money or whether it's time or whether it's help, it doesn't really matter what it is, but inside my consciousness, I don't want anything in exchange for what I've given. And so that would be a closer definition of love. And a closer definition of happiness is the contentment, the deepest form of happiness for me, of myself when I know my own true wealth is within. I want nothing from others. Yeah, I want nothing. It's not that I won't get something, but I don't want anything. So that makes happiness a kind of decision on my part and not a dependency. I don't make myself dependent on the other. I take complete responsibility for how I feel, and I don't project that responsibility onto the other. Not an easy thing to do because we tend to depend on external circumstances, the way things go, what people say, for how we feel inside, for the happiness we feel inside. Not recognizing that the feeling we have inside is a very subtle form of emotion, basically. So happiness then is a decision when I know my own true wealth within. And by the way, real wealth is something we already possess. If you like, it's not a possession, it is just the nature of our being on the inside, is to be wealthy with a variety of expressions of the energy that we have, that we are, whether it's peace or it's love or it's understanding or it's empathy. These are what makes up our wealth on the inside. It's caring, it's giving. These are expressions of the energy we have inside, in our consciousness. But we say, well, these come from our heart, and it's okay. Heart, consciousness, almost the same thing, basically. It's on the inside. So, life in 6 words. Life itself in 6 words. Peace is what I am. Love does what I do. And happiness is the reward. If you notice in your own experience or inexperience, you can't really be happy until you are at peace. In other words, you accept the situation as it is, and as long as you give something, some love to the situation or the person or the event, only then do you feel really content inside, because you've given yourself to that situation. Yeah, this is the very heart of spirituality, the very, very core. Peace is, love does, happiness is the reward. That happiness shows up as inner contentment. So it means that all emotion, in a sense, we did this yesterday, is unnatural, whereas peace is your nature. To be loveful is your nature. To be joyful is your nature. To be content, that is your nature. It's your natural states. But all emotion is not found in those states. Those states are distorted. They're aggravated. They're disturbed, if you like. And so the disturbance of your energy creates the emotions that we feel. So, are you living from inside out? And so let's do it very quickly. I, consciousness, soul, spirit, heart, whatever you want to call the I, the being that is consciousness inside the physical form. When your I, when your consciousness, and you know your states of being, you're aware of your states of being, and these are love and peace and happiness, and they're wisdom. And so when you are in those states of being, naturally, within your consciousness, your self-esteem and self-worth, your self-confidence is solid. It's intact. Yeah, you don't seek anything else to give yourself a sense of self-worth or self-esteem. And so it's these states of being which are already there, which give us that solidity. And who proved that to us? They locked him up for 27 years, and then they set him free, and not for one moment did he want to take revenge over the people who locked him up, but he became the de facto leader of the world for many people, and his name, of course, was Mandela. And so he walked out the most loving, the most peaceful, the happiest character that you could meet. And still he went through deprivation to get there. 27 years is a long time, but through his reading, through his study, through his understanding, he came to the conclusion that no one can take my peace away. No one can take my capacity to be loveful away. These are natural states within me. And so he was able to do that, and much admired for it afterwards. So that then comes through the qualities of your character. You're caring, generous. I don't need to compete with anyone. I cooperate with other people. I'm very respectful towards other people at all times. Nothing can shake these qualities of my consciousness, of my nature within myself. And so they then enhance my attitudes and behaviors, and they sustain my talents and skills. So now I'm living from inside out. Yeah, I'm living from inside out, but most of us, we learn to live from outside in. In other words, to become dependent on external sources of what we want, desire, and when we get it, only when we get it, will we be happy. We'll be at peace with ourselves. Only when we go to the beach and lie under the sun. Yeah. Only when we find that one special person who's going to give us all that love in our life, we become dependent on those events happening in our life to feel love and peace and happiness, etc. But they're already there. our wealth of those things are already within our consciousness. And that's the bit they didn't teach us. They had us kept searching, looking, seeking for those qualities of consciousness at an external level. Yeah. So we come round to do feeling, and feeling has a very simple definition. It is perception by touch. So we can feel at three different levels. We can perceive, we can touch at three different levels. First of all, the physical level. The physical level is when you use your sense perceptions. In other words, you go to the department store and you touch the dress, you touch the suit, and you can feel the quality of the material, the width of the material. And so you're using your physical senses to perceive, to touch the material. And that's called a physical feeling. And it sends signals to your brain, to your consciousness, and then you can feel through your physical body. But you also feel mentally. So when you receive an idea, let's say from me, for example, you might be saying, your head might be nodding, and you say, yes, what he's saying feels logical. I perceive the logic in what he's saying. It feels right. Yeah, it feels right. But of course, when we say, I don't see the logic, but I might say, yes, it feels okay. I see it. There's sense in it. I understand it. I don't know why. Yeah, there's no logic, but there's just this feeling that it feels right. Yeah. And in the first instance, when you're using your logical ability, you're using what's called rational intelligence. And you have this ability to rationalize things, to see things A, B, C, D, to see things in sequence. And we usually use our rational intelligence for external purposes, to organize things, to organize the house, to lay out the house that I live in the way I like it. I use my rational intelligence to put the chair here, and it's the most intelligent thing to do to put the table there. And so we're using rational intelligence. But in the second instance, when something just feels right, it tends to be more about the theory, about what's going on inside, and it tends to be more like my intuitive intelligence. I don't know why, it just feels right. And so your intuition is arising to meet what you're feeling with your mind, and you're saying, yes, I see it. I understand it. I don't know why, because there's no rational, but I intuitively, I can feel that it's correct. So we have what's called intuitive intelligence, and we usually draw on that deeply inside. That comes to the surface in quiet moments when we are not disturbed in any way whatsoever by anything outside or inside. We're usually thinking things gently through our consciousness, not seeking with tension for an answer, but our intuition tells us, our feelings arise to tell us that that's correct or this is the way to go. And I'm sure everybody has had examples of that happen in their life. And then the final way of feeling, perceiving, touching is by spiritual. And as you know, we are all vibrating, and you probably have had someone come into your life, come into your house, and you know the mood they're in. You don't have to see them. You can just tell what mood they're in because you pick up their vibes. You pick up their vibrations. Yeah, you don't have to say anything to them, to see them at all, their physical face. You just know the mood they're in by the vibes they are sending out. And we pick up those vibes with what's called our subtle spiritual awareness. And so they're sending out vibes, we're picking them up. And that could be called a spiritual feeling. But the deepest feeling is when you sit quietly in a corner and just go inside yourself. You shut everything out on the outside and you just feel very peaceful, very quiet. Your mind has gone quiet, your thoughts have gone quiet, and you feel very relaxed, very peaceful. And so, what am I feeling? I'm feeling my true nature, which is to be at peace. And I feel that peace. I feel how calm it is in my consciousness. And is it as easy as that? Yes, it is. It's as easy as that to feel what you already have within your consciousness. And there's a natural, pure feeling of peace or lovefulness or contentment. You will feel it naturally. And so these would be spiritual feelings because it's your spirit that's emanating these vibrations and you're feeling them on the way out. Yeah, you're feeling those vibrations on the way out as you express. And you cannot not press out your nature. It's just that you've learned or mislearned how to get attached, and therefore you're twisting, distorting the vibrations, the energy as it comes out. And you don't feel your nature, you feel some kind of emotional disturbance. Yeah. So it takes a little bit of awareness to see this for yourself. But as I said yesterday, it's necessary to raise your awareness, to move your awareness around your own consciousness and become aware of what is going on. Because whatever I say, you'll forget in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, half an hour. It'll be gone. And so you really have to make that effort for yourself. And then you see for yourself. So there's moments, they come, when we feel our emotions. I may say, I feel angry. Yeah, there is anger here. And so it's okay, it's all right to say that, but to know that the feeling is of angriness instead of peace, instead of joy, instead of being loveful. You are feeling quite emotional because anger is an emotion. So you sometimes say it, or even just thinking, oh, I feel really angry. So it's okay, it's not bad, it's not wrong, but it's necessary to go into that feeling and find what it is that it is making you feel like that. You're allowing to make you feel angry. Yeah, there's an old saying, I do not know what you say or do that makes me feel this way. Yeah. Or yes, that's the wrong way around. Sorry. Yeah. It's not what you say or do that makes me feel this way. It's what I do with what you say or do that makes me feel this way. Let me say it again. It's not what you say or do that makes me feel this way. It's what I do with what you say or do that makes me feel this way. And so it's not the other person, it's never the other person who makes you feel any emotional or any feeling, in fact. It's you. You are the one responsible on the inside for whatever you're feeling. And that's not an easy insight. And it takes a little bit of really understanding to get there. A few aha moments. Ah, it's me. It's not them. I thought it was me. No, it's me. I thought it was them. So when you're emotional, you cannot choose your feelings. Yeah, you can't choose your feelings. So when there is emotion present, when you're feeling emotional, you can't choose how you will feel, because all that will happen in your consciousness is you'll be consumed by that emotion. Yeah, and only will you restore your choice when that emotion dies down. So don't suppress or repress or even express your emotions if you can help it, but transform them. Yeah. And so understand where they're coming from and then transform them. And so maybe you've seen this at the top. I don't know how it's crept in at the top of the page there, but this is a basic thing to remember at all times, and that is all emotion dies under observation. As soon as you step back and you observe the emotion that you are creating, then it will die. Because when you step back on the inside, not physical step, but when you step back just to observe, you withdraw your energy, your consciousness from the emotional state. And so it begins to die when you withdraw your energy. And that's the very core of the ability to meditate. Meditation is just watching. In other words, not engaging, just watching what's going on in your consciousness. So a nice little exercise, I won't ask you to do it now, but is to go through the process of what's happening in your consciousness, and you'll begin to see that it's possible to move from reaction to response. So let's say the event was my father tells my mother he's taking my brother to watch his favorite football team in Italy, and they fight. So my perception is, this is terrible. Mum and Dad are fighting. My thought is, what a selfish idea, Dad. And you made my mother so upset. And so the emotion is anger at my father, let's say. Let's say it's anger. And so my ego is, I'm attached to the image of a happy family. This is where the anger is coming from, is I'm really angry that we are not very happy. And so I'm attached to this idea that we're a happy family. And suddenly there's an argument and people are not happy with each other. So there's action. What do? I withdraw my cooperation. I criticize everything and everyone. And I don't laugh at my father's jokes anymore. Well, for at least a couple of weeks. And the outcome is there's no relationship with father, and I feel terrible. So there's an external outcome, which is the collapse of my relationship with father because I'm blaming him, and I feel terrible on the inside because I'm the first one to suffer whenever I create an emotional reaction. If I create anger, I'm the first one to feel it. If I create fear, I'm the first one to feel it. And therefore, I feel terrible. But it's possible, and this is what will be a sign that you're making great effort, is to respond to the situation in a slightly different way so you don't make yourself suffer. So the event is the same. The perception is, what a great idea. What a fantastic idea. My father's taking my brother to see his favorite football team. Well done, Dad, I think. Well done. And so I'm happy for my brother, go to the airport, farewell, appreciate my father, and I have compassion for my mother. She's still upset. And so I'm happy for brother, appreciate father's idea, and I have compassion for my mother. So there's no ego, there's no attachment. I'm all around demonstrating my ability to give without wanting anything in return. And that's what I'm giving to my brother, father, and mother. So, whoops, the daisy, just come back a page. And so, what do? I help my brother pack his bag, go to the airport, see him off, say farewell, have a good time. And what's the outcome? Great relationship with father, mother, and brother. What do I do with my mother? Do I sit and criticize her for being upset? No, I go and listen. Are you very upset? What exactly are you feeling? What are you going through? And sometimes that's called therapy. I just sit with my mother, who's very angry, until she calms down. And all I do is listen. It's just listen to what my mother has to say. And so eventually she comes around and she is cool and she's okay. So a great relationship with all three people is the outcome, only because I changed my perception from this is terrible to what a great idea. So we can do that at any time. We can do it with any situation. And all I advise is when you come home at the evening is you sit down and process which situations did I really become upset? Did I really suffer? And what could I have done differently? And you'll get it. You'll understand the theory eventually, and you'll be able to get it. And so the next day in the similar situation, you react differently. So love is the highest vibration that we can emanate, and we're emanating that all the time. But of course, there is something called the mind, and it has to go through the mind, from consciousness through the mind. And if I'm attached to anything on the mind, what happens on the other side is it comes out with a different vibration. What started as a loving heart in my consciousness becomes a fear or an anger towards something outside. Yeah, and that's because I'm attached to something on the screen of my mind. So be free, let go, as they say. Fear is love distorted by attachment. That's all. That's all it is. So undistort oneself and restore the ability to be loveful. So a summary: whatever you attach to, yourself to, in that moment, it becomes your identity, and that's an illusion. And so the ego is born. Yeah, whatever you get attached to. We did that yesterday. Emotion, illusion, is a disturbance in your consciousness. Yeah, it's it's a real illusion. The illusion has a certain amount of realness, but it is not reality. We are trapped in the cycle of suffering. Many emotions means we're suffering a great deal or just a little. I don't know, it doesn't really matter, but it's because we believe we are what we think or think about or hold in our mind. And that's not true. That's an illusion about myself. I am not what I hold in the mind. We become addicted to the emotions and exhausted by the emotions. Yeah, we actually go looking for situations or people which will make us emotional, and then we become very tired. While we feel our emotional disturbances, feeling is something we can consciously do at any time. But of course, choosing our feelings means I need to be free of emotion to begin with. And then we can feel at three levels: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Perception by touch. And we can use our hand, our mind, or our being just to touch, to see what it is we are feeling. And then finally, fear is love distorted by attachment. So that kind of sums it up. And let's end there and see if there's any questions or anyone who has anything they're not clear about.
While people are thinking for questions or comments, I'll just read what was written in the comments. It says, in psychology, we always say anger emerges when boundaries are crossed, and in brackets, which is in line with what you say, I do not get what I want.
Yeah, just let me stop there. And in psychology, they're quite accurate, and you can go on Google and get a definition of emotion, a psychological definition. But we've gone very deeply, and I've tried to explain the spirituality that's involved, that takes place in the creation of emotion, which is beyond, one step beyond the psychological, if you know what I mean. But they're similar, they're very close, but there's one step beyond, one step deeper. So I've tried to do that. Second question?
The comment was Shakespeare saying is similar. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
That's very true. Okay, that's it.
Okay. And another saying
Yep.
that reminds me of this example. It says, anger is holding on to, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah, that's it. So you're blaming the other person for how you feel.
Yeah.
You think someone else or something else is making me upset, is making me angry. But they're not. It's always me.
That's right. So let's see. Bianca, yes?
Hello, thank you very much for this talk. I really, really enjoyed it. Sorry, I'm the psychologist that's putting all these comments in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Because it's just interesting to see how psychology describes it, how spirituality tries to look at it from a rather more holistic angle. And so my question would be, I understand the difference between feelings and emotions and the physiology as part of that. How would you define this, however, from your understanding, from the way of how spirituality explains it?
When you use the term physiology, what do you mean exactly?
So again, from psychological perspectives, we
Okay.
explain emotions in a way that those emotions that you described, we always say there are 6 universal emotions. People, regardless of culture and society and upbringing, express these emotions, which involve fear, anger,
Yeah.
sadness,
Yeah.
also joy, surprise, disgust.
Yeah.
But they all have, when you mentioned, will they actually be negative, or are they negative, or do we actually, in principle, just have love, peace, and joy?
Yeah.
And they actually have just been created in a way to disturb this balance or this natural tendency of what we have. In psychology or evolutionary perspectives, we always would say, yes, the fact that we experience these emotions, such as fear, anger, sadness, it has all a function, and this function has been established physiologically. So physiologically, because also animals have it, species have it. That
Just slightly slower, please.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Oh,
there is a translation going on.
the translation. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And that is a description of physiology needed to emerge to some extent to create these emotions or the functionality of this emotion. So my question would be for you is, do you disagree with this? And do you think these emotions should not be there and we have actually created them? And how do you describe then that animals and other species do have at least fear? And we know also from studies that sadness also exists, such as in dogs, when there is loss, when there is conditioning, training, some sort of form, they also experience dog depression, and they don't want to, they lose appetite, they lose.
Okay, that's enough. Just hold on. 3 things. Well, we're not animals. You know, we have an intellect, we have a mind. Animals have a very crude level of mind. They don't have an intellect. And so they can be made to feel certain emotions at certain times, and that's okay. But we are the creators of every emotion, and we can consciously create. We can be aware that we've created them, and we've learned how to create them. That's been handed down to us by our parents, by teachers, and so on. And what's also handed down is that it's okay to have these emotions, that they're natural. And so what I'm saying, or what I'm sharing with you from a spiritual perspective, is that they're unnatural. Emotions are unnatural. There's not negative or positive. It's just we have certain feelings, and then they're distorted by things we become attached to as human beings. Human beings become attached to things, and that's not natural. That's unnatural. And so emotions are unnatural, whereas our feelings are very natural, but they will not emerge as long as we are attached, as long as we are afraid of losing something. So I'm coming from a slightly different point of view, and that is that we create, and we've learned to create them, and so the world generally says, well, it's okay. I mean, to have negative and positive emotions, it's okay as long as you're aware of them. But they're not negative or positive, they're just emotions. They're just distortions of the feelings, the natural feelings of the human being. And the reason I'm not doing positive and negative is there is none in consciousness. Consciousness is one. And so there's no duality in consciousness, but we've learned to create our language with dualistic terms, right, wrong, here, there, good, bad, etc., etc. And so we immediately go positive or negative. I think positive and I negative. Oh, I shouldn't be negative thinking. I should be positive thinking. And so we get lost in the tension between the two. Whereas there's just thinking, really. And so now your awareness will tell you what's a good thought. It's very difficult to speak to you in non-dualistic terms, but you'll understand the word quality if you've studied it at all. That the quality of your thinking is something that can be raised or lowered. And so what we're doing is we're raising the quality of our thinking by taking responsibility for our emotions. We create our emotions. I create the emotions I feel. And so I'm going to raise the quality of my feelings, get rid of the emotional content, and so it's natural feelings. So I hope that makes sense. Good.
Perfectly, yes.
Right. It's not easy to explain. Yeah.
And somewhere in between, to meet between what two of you are saying, not 100% duality, but not 100% one, would be consciousness and lack of consciousness.
Lack of awareness, you mean?
Lack of awareness.
Yeah, yeah. You are consciousness, but
Yes, but
we haven't cultivated our awareness of what's going on in what we are,
yeah.
which is consciousness. Yeah.
Which then leads to
So
lowering of
Yeah.
quality.
That's
yes,
right. That leads to the lowering of quality. Exactly.
yeah.
Very good.
So lack of awareness would really be the distortion of feelings.
Yeah, the key. It's the key. Yeah, that's why I keep saying you have to work this out for yourself. You have to see for yourself. I mean, I can speak for hours on end and it won't make any difference. You'll forget most of it, but you really need to make this exploration within yourself. Yeah, and become aware of what's going on.
So all we need to do is raise awareness, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so there is a question in the chat. It says distortion of emotions starts from the ego, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So is there any positive aspect of an ego in general, regardless of the emotions?
Well, ego is neither positive or negative. It's what we have learned. We've learned to become attached to objects and people and things, and not just attached to those things, but build our sense of identity. And so that's wrong. That becomes wrong. If you identify, for example, I've used the example of the car, is that if someone damages your car, you take it very personally. You become very upset, you become angry. Not if they damage someone else's car, but my car is damaged. And in that moment, my identity is based on the object, on the car. Yeah, and that is the mistake. That's just a mistake that we make. And we mistake that we make that mistake because, as you say, lack of awareness, lack of understanding. And so it distorts the energy of our consciousness, and it goes from what's natural to somewhat emotional. So it's not positive or negative, it's just a question of becoming more aware and therefore healing your feelings. If you're feeling very angry, you need to heal your feelings. And so to purify your feelings. So you're free of the anger. And that means if someone scratches your car, it doesn't bother you. You stay naturally quiet and peaceful and loveful or whatever. You stay in your nature. Whereas if you've identified with the car, when someone damages the car, it's as if they damage you. You take it very personally. Do you see the difference? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the comment sounds very reasonable. Thank you very much. Okay, another question is, how is the ability of taking control over our own emotions connected to our own experience of time?
Well, the big mistake, and this is not an easy thing to understand, is that we get lost in time. In other words, we create mentally a future, but there is no future. We create mentally the past, it's called nostalgia sometimes, nostalgia and speculation. And we get lost in these areas and they don't exist. They're not real. They're illusions that we create in our mind, and then we lose ourselves in them. And so that's ultimately what's happening. There is only this moment now. There is just now. But that's hard for people because we've been programmed, conditioned, if you like, to believe that there is a future and there is a past, and that we should visit. And it's okay to visit, and it's okay to wallow in what happened yesterday and what might happen tomorrow. But in actual fact, it's not real. But we give it the state of reality. We give it the status. I'm going on holiday next year. I'm going to lie on the beach. I can imagine myself lying on the beach under the sun, really. And so it's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy, basically. It's a waste of my consciousness to think like that. Yeah. And that's why they sometimes say the anticipation of traveling is much better than the realization. And that's what most of us have learned to do, to anticipate what is about to become in our life. Yeah. And therefore we miss the moment now. And this is the moment now.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay. Are there any other questions? You can speak up if that's easier. Okay.
Okay.
Someone was asking if we could have the set of slides.
Oh yes, yeah. I'll send you the slides. I'll send you them as printed items, and people can then pick up on the exercises and they can use them in whatever way they want, which will
Yeah.
help to expand, to raise their awareness, basically. Yeah.
Okay, there is one more question. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Coming in the chat. From which emotional state do we get the need of perfectionism? Shall I go one by one or shall I read it to the end? Let's read it to the end so we understand. Is it possible that that need in our logic world or physical world comes from the inner feeling of perfection, being perfect? that we are feeling when we are connected with our own source, with the capital S, which is, or our original state. So
Yeah, I think I
yeah.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, the answer is you don't need anything. I need perfection, if you like, until you don't need it. Yeah. And you stop seeking it. You stop trying to be it. And you just accept the way you are. And then you'll find you're moving towards a more perfect state. But if you're seeking it, if you're looking for it and trying to bring it to you, then it doesn't work. You become, you become needy. And if you are needy in any way, then you are becoming dependent. You're dependent on what you need. So even if you haven't achieved it yet, you still imagine what it is, and you lose yourself in your imagination. You take the perfect you, the you that's perfect, I'm going to be like this, and you live in that perfection. But life isn't perfect. Life is imperfect now. And so it's about accepting the imperfections, but always trying to heal, to make it better, to be more aware. Yeah. And so it will naturally then proceed to become you as a better person. It'll proceed in that direction. But it won't if you're always, oh, I've got to be perfect. This has got to be perfect. That's got to be perfect. And so there's a dependency there. And that's not healthy. Any kind of dependency is unhealthy. It means you're in a state of resistance to the way things are. And this is why hope is a disease. Hope is to hope for the best in the future, which doesn't exist. It's to hope for a different set of conditions, which means I'm not accepting the way things are now. I'm in resistance. And so accept the way things are right now and work on them. You can improve them, you can change them right now, instead of hoping that things will get better. So you're kind of stuck in this hope, instead of getting up, no resistance, make it better, make it right now. Yeah. And so it just throws light onto that as not a very sensible thing to do. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Does it, Stanka?
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
okay, Stanka again. It's good.
No, this is it. That's the question I translated.
Very good. Good question, actually, from your translation at least.
I'm doing my best.
Yeah, it's not your natural language, obviously.
Mm.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. And as I said, I'll send the slides or pictures of the slides to Dusha. And then if you have any other questions, if you have any questions on anything, feel free to send it to Dusha and she'll send it on to me. But really, it's down to each of us as individuals to raise our self-awareness of what's going on in our consciousness. It's up to each individual to do that. And then you have your own realizations, and then it becomes real for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All the
Goodbye.
best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.